What are your thoughts on this person dealing with her daughter's partner?
He's in a very difficult position. Not to talk about the mountain weight per se, but the guiding principle is that we cannot help anybody that is not fully prepared to help themselves.
Is that your guiding principle, or is that a general guiding principle?
That's mine. Yeah. Because I know perfectly well it isn't going to help. The things I ask them to do won't make any difference if they don't actually believe in it and don't engage in it. So why is that relevant? Well, just to go back to what I said a bit earlier on in the conversation, the individual, the staff sergeant, if that's what he was, has to recognize there's a problem himself. The first problem is to get him to actually recognize there is a problem. Now, I had one guest whose parents came to a presentation I gave in Exeter some years ago, and they straight afterwards said, "This is exactly what our son needs, how do we do all this?" I said, "Well, here's my number, get him to give me a call." Well, he didn't. So I got back in touch and said, "Can you give me his number?" So they did, and I rang him. As soon as he knew who I was, he put the phone down. It took 3 years to get him to actually answer the phone. Yeah. And what turned it was his wife had finally reached the end of her tether, and she'd given him an ultimatum. "You either talk to that guy, Andy, or I'm leaving with the kids." And that's what did it. So he had to be pushed. And if you go onto our website and have a look at the various videos that are available there, you'll see his story.
The website is called The Mountain Way?
That's right, yes.
Dot?
It's www.mountainway.org.
Mountainway.org, not The Mountain.
That's right, yeah.
Mountainway.org. We'll get that up on the screen for everyone so they've got a reference.
So that's the first problem this gentleman's got, is he's obviously seeing signs. It sounds like he's on the right track. It probably is PTSD. But the individual needs to actually accept there's a problem here before you can do anything with it.
So you're not suggesting that this questioner's daughter should say she's leaving with kids if they've got kids, but maybe find some way of applying some pressure to seek help?
And in my experience, that's very difficult because it's simply a case of denial. They will not accept it. I mean, they've been steeped, and particularly in the army, and again, we're not cat-patch rivalry here, but the army as well as I do. They're a bit more formal in certain things, a bit more rigid, a bit more old-fashioned perhaps, and particularly the guards.
Yes.
And so I can imagine the kind of training he's had and the kind of indoctrination, if you want to call it that, and therefore his attitude to this, it'll be a huge admission of failure. He'll be massively ashamed of the whole thing, and that's what you're fighting in order to get them to believe. Now, if he's actually had any form of treatment beforehand and it hasn't made a slight bit of difference, you've also got to deal with cynicism because he doesn't believe anything's going to help. Yeah. And the more outrageous they are, like myself, for example, who outside the establishment, not mainstream, the less likely they are to even engage with us. So, you've got a real problem there to break this all down. Somehow or other, somebody in the family or somebody maybe external to the family that he respects has got to take him one side. "Look, mate, you need some help. Come on, stop messing about."
Yeah. And maybe a starting point is just by sheer coincidence saying, "I was watching this show the other day. This bloke who was talking about PTSD. It's really interesting," and so on. So maybe that's an avenue to start the conversation.
Could be a good way of doing it, yeah.